Today we have two fascinating journeys, both of which are very different. The first will be presented by Edith Sangueza. Edith is from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and the title of her presentation is Photography and Modernism, and Modernities in Peru. Edith and I first met actually after freshman year. I actually didn't know that she existed until the summer when we went to Italy together. And we took.
It's good that you met, given that you're introducing us.
Meeting is necessary. And we took many journeys together to Florence and Rome and Venice, but never to Peru, which is where she is going to take you today. Edith has a wonderful personality, and you may, or you have received several emails from her as step coordinator. You may have also seen her name in the Dimensions Art magazine. She is also this year a gallery guide at the Yale University Art Gallery. She has already led 4 guides this year, and she is set to do more. So I encourage you to go to those. She has been interested in this topic for quite a while, including the summer after her sophomore year, I believe. She traveled down to Lima and its environs, as well as to Paraguay, Uruguay, I think, to study Incan art and specifically how the landscape of that region was captured and represented in the artists of the area. So, without further ado, this is Edith Sangueza with Photography and Modernities in Peru.
You can stay there, please.
Thanks so much, Chris.
Careful with the piece of furniture, Chris.
This is for my senior project in art history. And basically, I'm looking at two and a half photography collections from the late 19th century and early 20th century, so about approximately a 40-year span, and how landscape photography works in 2 different media and 2 different contexts. The first set of images that I'm kind of examining is photographs from Hiram Bingham's expeditions to Peru. And I have photographs both from the 1911 expedition, which was the first one sponsored by Yale University that he led to Peru, when they discovered Machu Picchu. So the photographs from that exhibition were taken by Harry Ward Foote, who was a Yale chemistry professor and was the so-called naturalist of the trip. And then the second set of images from Bingham's expeditions are from his 1915 expedition. And there's quite a difference in the way those images are presented, which you'll see, which is partly due to like how they're archived. And then the second kind of group of photographs that I'm looking at is an album called Recuerdos del Perú that are a collection of photographs taken by an Arequipa studio photographer named Ricardo Villalba, and that collection is in the Beinecke. It was a book that was bought or acquired by Hiram Bingham, I'm not sure how at this point, and donated to Yale in 1907, so before he went on his first expedition. So I'm kind of trying to see like how those different images speak to each other, and like how they influence each other and how they're different. So that's just a little background. Master G, you're doing the Vanna White thing? Okay. So this presentation is kind of broken down into 3 parts. The first is Hiram Bingham and the camera, and the second is just perspectives, and then the third is the different uses of memory. So this is just kind of an overview of some of the images that I'm looking at. So this is the first one. This is from one of the 1911 photographs. So it was taken by Harry Ward Foote. And these photographs, the Foote photographs, are from manuscripts and archives, and these are the last slides that were on which the images were captured. And then they were later hand colored, so the slides themselves were colored in. So this is just one example. It's women and children in a field with some llamas off to the side. And this is another slide of llamas. This picture actually made it into one of the exhibitions of Bingham's photographs at the National Geographic Society in Washington, D.C. So this one was included with a lot of his work and published, which is kind of unusual because most of the photographs of the 1911 expedition weren't actually exhibited. So this is included kind of in his catalog. And he wrote about this picture that it illustrates how llamas are tethered in Peru. The llama has so little ordinary intelligence and so great a desire to maintain its proper social standing that a group of llamas may be secured, as is shown in the picture, by a single rope passed around their stiffly erected necks. By merely lowering their heads, they could all escape. But they don't, because they're too, they have too little intelligence.
Socially ambitious.
So you have to wonder a little bit how much of this editorializing is actually about llamas and how much of it is actually about the character of the indigenous people he encountered, because that's a strain that's kind of evident in some of his writings. Next picture, please. This is one of the first famous shots of Machu Picchu. It's really unusual that it's colored in, and this was actually a process that was popular at the time to try to make the photograph seem more vivid and more present and real. And when you look at it, it's kind of interesting. You'll see this more in another example, but because it's not really very well done, as you can tell. Like, there are just like patches of green on the grass and then kind of patches of green on the stones. Ideally, it's supposed to kind of like make the image pop kind of and make it seem more three-dimensional, but that's not really happening here. But you see kind of the impulse to like make this world real. Nice picture. And this is another image of a man seated in the process of uncovering some of these ruins. And you can see again like how the color works. The detail's pretty sharp in the foreground, and then the background is all kind of washed out, and it doesn't really even seem like a photograph. It's more like kind of a bad watercolor or something, which is typical of this technique. So next. And then these are examples from the 1915 expedition that were actually shot by Bingham himself. These are housed in the Yale Peabody Museum archives. And so it's just interesting the way these are organized. They're the prints rather than the slides themselves. And you can see kind of how these neat captions, there were more than 12,000 photographs taken from all the different expeditions. And Bingham was pretty fanatical about labeling all of them. So you can see